Okay, everybody, how you doing? Kim Carver here. I am so excited to be here with the group. Just going through the page today, looking through all the different videos that are there, and boy, man, this is an amazing group you guys got going on here. Amazing content, amazing piece of information. And I'm excited, honored just to be part of it, honestly. We just came off a really good Super Saturday. I hope all of you had a chance to attend. Some amazing announcements, some really good momentum now to kind of push us through to Summit. Lots of things kind of being delivered over the next little while. And it really is, in all honesty, one of the best times to be a Team Beachbody coach. So really excited to be here. I actually have my phone flipped around because I'm going to use some slides real quick just to kind of mention a few pieces that I printed out. And I don't want to be mirrored, so let me just make sure that I'm live real quick. Hold on. Yeah, all right. Looks like we're live. Now, I can't see any of your comments, so feel free to bash me or do whatever you need to do behind the scenes because I won't be able to see them. But no, in all seriousness, I'm super excited to be here with you guys, and I hope that we can share. I hope that I can add some value to this, especially around inviting. And I know that this is a topic that is one that creates a lot of anxiety for coaches. It created a lot of anxiety for me when I was on your side of the table and working kind of as a rep, if you will, or a coach in a previous life many years ago. It was the thing that I, like a lot of you, didn't feel like I did very well. It was very intimidating to me. I was very self-critical. I was overly analytical. A lot of those things around inviting, so I get it. When I have a chance to go around the country and do 4 vital behaviors trainings and talk with coaches, and we spend an hour and a half talking through inviting, and you can kind of see the anxiety and then the aha moments and the things. It's very rewarding to me to help people understand that inviting isn't what a lot of people think it is. In fact, most coaches look at inviting backwards in my experience. It's not trying to manipulate someone into doing something that they don't want to do. That's not inviting. Sometimes you feel that way if you're coming at it the wrong way. Really, especially as a coach, inviting is simply helping someone, identifying a need, matching with a solution, and then helping them make the decision to start. And I want you to just think about that for just a second. Because at its core, that's really one of the biggest things that coaches do, is they help people start. Most of the people, the majority, if not all of the people that are going to come to you, as challengers especially, but even people that are looking to coach, they're not good at making positive decisions regarding their health and fitness. They're not good at that. That's the reason why they need you as a coach. So to expect them to fully embrace the commitment and the sacrifices that come with making those positive decisions around your invites, to have that as an expectation is probably setting yourself up for disappointment. And that tends to be where a lot of the anxiety around inviting comes from. People don't understand why people don't get it. And so hopefully today, as we talk through this, I'll be able to give you some things that will help you navigate that a little bit better, maybe give you a little bit more confidence. We're going to get into the weeds here a little bit on inviting. So I want you to kind of strap in, put on your seatbelt a little bit here, and stay with me because one of the things that's hard about this type of a format is I have no idea how engaged or not engaged you are. You can make the decision right now to check out, to change another tab on your browser and just be listening to me or be doing other stuff, and you might glean a few things off of it if you do that. But if you'll really just stay with me on this, especially as we get into kind of the nuts and bolts, the blocking and tackling of inviting. If you'll do that with me, okay, you're going to get a lot out of this. It's been my experience you can get a lot out of this. A lot of the information I'm presenting to you has been proven time and time again, especially within Beachbody, and comes really from the best practice of a lot of most successful coaches out there. So I keep looking to my side here on my own computer to make sure that we're squared away. So let's get started. So as I was thinking about how we wanted to launch into this, I thought about an experience I had when I was growing up. Like a lot of you, when I turned 16, one of the most the biggest things I looked forward to was the ability to start driving, to get my driver's license. And back in the day, this was a long time ago. I'm 41 now. I know I look 51, but I'm actually only 41. And back in the day, my family, the only car we had 2 really beat up cars, okay, and both of them were stick shifts. Now I know a lot of you on this have never driven a stick shift before, okay. But stick shifts are a little tricky, right? Instead of the car manually shifting through gears as you speed up, like when you have an automatic, you actually have 3 pedals on the bottom. You have to push in a clutch, okay? Shift the car into gear, and then slowly let out the clutch while you push down the gas, and then you do that with every single gear to move through the gears as you go faster and faster. And so that was what I had to learn on, was on a standard, if you will, a stick shift car. And my dad took me out to the parking lot of a nearby church, and he taught me how to use that, how to do that. And I actually thought I was getting pretty good at it until he took me to a hill. And we were driving through kind of the city that we live in here, and he said, okay, we're going to go up to a hill now, because at this point I'd only practiced on flat ground. And so when we got up on the hill, I realized something, that as I let out the clutch, when you let out the clutch and start pushing on the gas, you're not holding the brake down. And so as you take your foot off the brake to put your foot on the clutch and start the gas, the car's in neutral. And on a hill, when the car's in neutral, it starts to roll backwards. And that scared the crap out of me. Because I'm sitting there, and every time I let that go, that car starts to roll backwards. And in my mind, I freak out. I think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I'm going to hit somebody, something's going to happen, I'm rolling backwards. And so I started to overcompensate. I went too fast from the clutch to the gas, and I would stall the car, and I couldn't get it to work. It took me a long time to figure out that even if I rolled back just a foot, it was okay. I rolled back a foot, the gas caught into it, and the car would continue to go. And that was tricky for me. It took a long time for me to learn, It took me a week or two before I felt really comfortable on hills with a stick shift. But now, whenever I have to go borrow my parents' truck to do some work in my house or whatever, I'm driving a stick shift, and I'm doing all kinds of crap I shouldn't do while I'm driving that stick shift now, right? I'm looking at my phone, I'm drinking stuff, I'm eating stuff, I'm talking to people, and now shifting that stick shift is no big deal, even when I'm on hills. Even when I go out and I know I roll back 6, 8, 12 inches, doesn't really matter, I know it's not a big deal, the gas will engage and I'll keep going. So why do I start off with that? I want you to think about that in terms of inviting, okay? When we do new things, and for a lot of you, okay, inviting would still be qualifying as a new thing, okay? But when we do new things, it can feel intimidating. And it's not intimidating, well, it can feel intimidating and feel hard. And it's not because necessarily the act itself is intimidating or the act itself is difficult, it's just you don't have the experience yet, okay? Just like me with driving that stick. And after a while, after I'd done it hundreds and thousands of times, now it doesn't cause me nearly the stress it used to. And in fact, it's not even really a thought to me anymore. That's what happens with inviting. In my experience, again, a lot of coaches, they get way too impatient with this. They get way too impatient with developing the skills around inviting. And I want you guys, I think specifically, to take some perspective on that, okay? So, my first slide here says, stop looking for the secrets and start learning the skills. When I talk to newer coaches or coaches that are inexperienced or kind of getting something, they become enamored with this idea, even if it's just a feeling, that there's something they're doing wrong, that there's some secret out there that they haven't quite wrapped their. I'll make sure I'm okay here. Okay, good, we're good. That they haven't quite discovered yet, and if they can just discover that, if someone will just tell them what that secret script is or that secret word is, then man, they're going to have so much success. And they become enamored with this idea. But that's not the case. It's like learning how to drive a stick shift. It just is experience. It's time, right? So stop looking for the secrets and just start focusing on learning the skills, okay? Now, one of the things you can do as we start learning the skills here a little bit is the perspective that comes through experience, but there are some things that you can latch onto that are tried and true that will help you develop them, okay? I'm going to start with 3 principles around effective inviting, all right? The first principle is this. Intent matters more than technique. I want you to look at that. Intent matters more than technique. Because I know a lot of you right now are super preoccupied with intent. You're super preoccupied with it. In fact, you're so preoccupied with it, what's probably happening with a lot of you is you're overcomplicating it. You're under-personalizing what you're doing when you talk to people. And you're focusing, because you're so focused on the technique, unintentionally you're focusing more on yourself than you are on the person you're talking to, okay? And so We want to realize here that intent matters more than technique. How do I think about the person? What are the thoughts going through my head when I'm talking to that individual? The thing I tell coaches to do is, look, I know that you got Success Club points on the line. I know you've got all these other factors, your income, commissions, all these things that you've got goals that are riding on people accepting your invitations to get started in your challenge groups. I know all that, okay? And that's going to be there. But in the moment before you talk to somebody, you need to clear your mind and just ask yourself a simple question. How will this person's life be different if they got started in this challenge group? How could it impact them for good? And let that be the last thought in your mind before you start talking to them, because it will come through in your intent. And I can promise you that how your intent behind what you're saying matters 10 times more than what you're actually saying. There's some research I was doing recently on millennials, right? And Generation X. And we're looking right now actually to we're this month we're going to be releasing an update to the Beachbody official invitation process, which I'm going to talk to you guys a little about today. And we're moving a little bit away from the 5-step invitation process that we have right now, not because there's anything wrong with it per se, but what it creates is an environment where that feels overly techniqued for a lot of people. And one of the things that we do know, and again, this research that I was doing kind of validated this, is but when it comes to millennials especially, and that later end of Gen X as you go into the millennials, which is the bulk of people that you're talking to right now, many of you, the number one thing they value when it comes to dealing with people in a business relationship is authenticity. It's authenticity. It's their intent, much more than their technique. In fact, they resent being techniqued. People don't like being techniqued, okay? So always, always, always remember that principle, that intent matters more than technique. Principle number 2, people change for pain or gain. Now let me explain that to you. Hold on, I gotta look at this one right here. This is what I mean by that. Sorry, I'm just checking my papers on the floor here. If you think about in your own life, when you make changes, you usually make changes because there's something that you really want, or some kind of pain or discomfort or some situation you don't like that makes you want to change. Now, what does that matter to you? Well, when you're talking to people and you're asking to make these changes, sometimes in the inviting process, it is about highlighting that pain or that gain, or identifying a pain or a gain that they want to the point where it makes it easy for them to want to make that change. An easy graph that I like to use is this one right here. And I don't know if you can probably see this. I'll get all these slides and I'll provide them to you guys on the website. But basically, on the group page. Here we have cost, right? The cost to a person. Okay, whether that's the cost of the challenge pack, the cost of talking to my spouse, the cost of the sacrifice I've got to make in getting up early, whatever the costs are, that's this line. And then we have their motivation here on the bottom. What you can look at here is there's really kind of a fixed cost for someone to get started in your challenge group, right? Like I said, it's the cost of the challenge pack, the pain I've got to go through in getting up in the morning and all that commitment, whatever it happens to be, that's the cost. Okay, but then there's also this blue line right here that kind of goes a diagonal. That's the cost of the need they have, right, or the pain that they have. And what you can see, a real simple way of thinking about this is if the cost for someone to get started is up here, but their need, the pain of their need or the cost of their need is below it, they're not going to be very motivated to get started, because the cost to them to get started is greater than the cost of the need they've got or the pain they're feeling. So what we have to do is find people and help people see where their costs to them of getting started are lower than the benefits they're going to get or the costs they're going to get for what they do as they participate in the challenge, for reaching their goals, etc., etc. This is a real simple conceptual graph, because you can ask yourself as you're talking to people, where are they? Do they really understand? Is the benefit big enough? We'll talk about that in just a second here. So that's the second principle. People change for pain or for gain. The third principle is use questions. Okay? Too many of you are doing too much talking and selling in your inviting and not enough asking and listening. Okay? And I'm going to walk through some ideas on that in just a second here. But use questions to move through the inviting process. Questions convey to somebody that your intent is to help them. Questions also arm you with a lot of really, really good information that will help you get someone more in that green space where they're more motivated to make a decision, because you'll understand where they're at. And sometimes questions help that person discover that they're in that green zone. They might not realize that. Again, they're not good at making decisions that are positive for their health and fitness, you guys. And so sometimes just going through that process with them can help them do that. So use questions. Okay, those 3 principles. I want you to just remember those 3 principles. And I could do, honestly, a whole training on that. But what I wanted to do was take just a second now and go through kind of how we're updating the Beachbody's official, what we teach for inviting. And again, the purpose of this, honestly, you guys, is to help our coaches be more authentic listeners and problem solvers when they talk to people, okay? No one wants to be a salesman. Do we do selling? Absolutely. But no one wants to do a salesman. And the only time we're going to feel salesy is if we feel like we're pushing something on someone that they don't want. And so this process simplifies it, makes it more, doable for a new coach, for newer coaches especially. And honestly, it'll help our coaches be a little bit more authentic. So there's a lot of things that you can teach, but I want to show you some of the things that we're going to be going through and kind of start teaching. Now, as I go through all of this, I know right now, part of my job in this training is to kind of get in the weeds and do a deep dive around inviting. And in that process, it can start to feel like it's this long, drawn-out thing. But it's really not. Sometimes it might be, depending on the person, but sometimes this can all happen in one conversation on Facebook or one conversation on the phone. So me breaking it down step by step does not imply that it has to go follow this long, methodical process. Okay, you guys? But I'm breaking it down so you'll understand those phases, so you can be better at developing those skills. I hope that makes sense to everybody. I want to make sure that, again, when I come to inviting, so many people get enamored with what's the secret, what do I need to do, that if I lay out these 3 principles and then I'm going to go through this 4 phases of inviting, you're going to think you have to, oh my gosh, like it's so complicated. No, it's not. It's not. Take the time, okay, like driving a stick shift, right? Take the time to learn it, but then as you apply that, look at the principles and how they're being applied to make you more effective at reaching people. Okay, so one of the things we want to talk through real fast here, well, as fast as I can, are the 4 phases of inviting, okay? Now, we're not going through, they're not not the 5 steps, okay? Again, we're kind of moving away from that overly technique piece, but we're going to talk through the phases. And the phases are important because typically you can find yourself and identify yourself in different phases with different people. And if you kind of know which phase you're in, you'll know how to keep moving things forward. Sometimes coaches get to the point where they feel stuck with somebody. They don't know where to go. Well, understanding these phases will help you move forward through the inviting process, okay? So for the first phase is forming a relationship, right? And the purpose of that is to establish your intent by focusing on the person and getting the relationship first, right? Phase number 2 then is identifying a need, right? Discover if they're in that green zone, right? That they're motivated to make it to make a change. And then phase 3 then is once I've identified a need, now I need to share information about the challenge group or about coaching and then get their feedback. And then phase 4 is what I call assuming success. So we're going to walk through these real quick, all right? One thing I will say, you should see my floor here, it's just littered with papers. Jeff Hill's going to walk by and be like, what the heck is he doing in there? One thing I will say is this. I'm going to go through each one of these 4 phases of inviting. These will typically, all 4 phases will happen most often with your cold market when you're getting to know people, okay? In your hot market or your really warm market, people you already know, you might be able to go right from, hey, I got the relationship with them already, I'm going to jump right to step 3, which is getting them the information, right? Hey, you know, it's a close cousin of yours, and you just got started with coaching. You know that cousin has been looking for ways to lose weight. You call them up. You're like, hey, this is right up your alley. I know you're going to love this. I want to send you some information on that, right? We don't have to go through those other processes because we already have the relationship and we already know the need. So I want to make sure I point that out. And it's important to understand that because in your warm market and your really hot market with people you really know, if you go through and try to do the forming, it's going to come across as artificial. And you want to keep those social norms. You want to talk to them like you've always talked to them before. With people you don't know, you don't have that tracker. With people you know, just talk to them like you normally talk to them. Okay, jump right to phase 3 to share that information. So I wanted to point that out. So as I go through this, okay, understand that it's being taught for the most challenging situation for most coaches, which is the cold market piece. But for warm market pieces, you can usually just jump right into phase 3 if it's people that you talk to all the time. And so when we get to phase 3, you can pay attention to that. Okay. All right. So phase 1 is forming a relationship, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but basically it's just making sure that you establish your intent on helping them as a person first. Right? So if it's someone maybe you've known in the past but you haven't reached out to in a while, don't let your first message boom be, hey, I got this challenge group starting, I want to send you some information. Reach out to them, ask them how their family's doing, how things been. Hey, I saw this on Facebook, it was nice to be able to catch up with you, or whatever it happens to be, right? These are people that are maybe on a contact list that you've had, and you want to reach out to them. But basically you want to make sure that relationship is there, right? If it's someone that you don't know, for those of you who haven't looked at the forming piece, there's a tool in the back office. It's called How to Build Relationships that walks through what forming is, right? It's an acronym that stands for family, occupation, recreation before your message, which basically is find common ground with that person, get to know them a little bit before you jump into any kind of an invite process or identifying a need with them. It's really, really important, guys. That's one of the things that makes Beachbody so unique, is our approach to inviting is a very people-first approach, a very need-based approach first. We're not just trying to push things on people. We're not just trying to make a sale. We're trying to establish a relationship. And that's what really is the bedrock of your ongoing residual income, is that ability. So that forming that relationship, and I'm not going to get into a ton of details on it right here, but I wanted to make sure that mentions. As we go from phase 1 then, forming a relationship, to phase 2, this is the one that trips up most people. How do I go from kind of getting to be friends with them, finding common ground, into talking about Beachbody? Now, in my experience, what that has been, the problem with that is people, again, tend to change their mindsets. I'm talking to somebody, and because I'm not talking about something that I feel I have a money motivation or a business interest in, I can just talk to them. But the second my mind thinks, oh, I want to try to bring up Beachbody, or I think they could benefit from this, or I see an opportunity here, their mind shifts, and they stop talking to them like a person. They start talking to them in a different way. And so it's hard to teach this transition, because every single person and situation is a little bit unique. And so I like to focus more on the principle behind that, right? Which is, if you've established your intent, and again, that might happen in a 2-minute discussion, or it might happen over the course of a few months. But if you've kind of established that intent, you can go to them and bring up, okay, just be really direct. Don't try to beat around the bush. Don't try to hide it. Just be pretty direct to them, okay? Say something like, hey, I don't know if you saw, but I've got this fitness boot camp started up in a few weeks, and I just think that you would be a great addition to this group, but I want to make sure the fit's right. Do you have a second for me just to ask you a few questions? Something like that, right? Again, these are people that maybe you don't have a great relationship with, so you kind of feed that into it, but something that's pretty direct, that allows you to transition right into that next phase. The next phase is identifying a need, right? Phase 2 is identifying a need. And again, this is all about getting into that green zone that I showed you earlier, getting into that green zone. And so as you transition, you just want to ask them, hey, you know what? I want to make sure, I think this would be fantastic for you. I'd love to send you some information on it. I just want to make sure it's the right fit first, okay? And the reason why this is important, you guys, is because if you go right from the relationship to giving them information on the challenge pack, that's going to start to feel like the relationship was manipulative to get to a sale. Identifying a need first seems like a natural thing that friends would do. Dude, if you don't need it, I don't want you to buy it. I would love to help you, but if the need isn't there, and if you think about it logically, that makes sense. But so many coaches jump that step. I've got a friendship, bam, right? I'm going to try to get him into my challenge group. This phase 2 of identifying a need is a real important one. Now, in the course of getting to know them, in phase 1, they might tell you a need. You might be able to discover it, in which case it's fantastic. Okay, that's great. You already know, and you can move forward. Maybe they've given that information to you. But if you don't know if they have a need, if you don't know where they're at in that blue line, if they're in the green zone or the red zone, you need to find out. And this, in my experience, tends to be a really intimidating thing for coaches. So what I've done is I've gone through and and again, this is going to feel overly systematic, but again, this is teaching principles here. 7 questions, how to identify a need. All right? Now, the things I want to point out on this is each question has a purpose. So you're going to see the question, and your inclination is going to be to focus on the question, think, oh, that's the magic script. It's not. These are my words. You're going to want to use your own words. Instead, focus on the purpose. Because what you'll find is if you understand what you're trying to what purposes you're trying to achieve, you might only ask 2 questions and then bam, they give you all that information, in which case you don't need to ask the other 5 questions. You've got all the information you need to be able to recommend a solution for them, okay? But if they don't, now you have a kind of a process that you can walk through. So focus on the purpose, not just more than the questions, okay? And again, if you give you all the information that you need after 2 questions, just stop, go forward. Recommend going to phase 3. All right, so here are the phases, okay? I'm gonna cover this up with paper so that we don't get too overwhelmed, okay? So here are the 7 purposes, right? I want to frame the discussion, then I want to know why it's a problem and how big of a problem it is. I want to understand the internal and external impacts, and I want to know the outcome that they want. It's really hard to read these backwards, by the way. And I want to be able to identify any constraints they got or know what their constraints might be, and then create kind of a vision of excitement that might happen for them. So if you think about this, again, this is very broken down to help it be easier to train, but if you think about just talking to somebody, you guys, and I'm going to keep coming back to this because that's really where effective inviting is in just the conversation and my intent to help somebody, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down. I want to talk to them about health and fitness. I'm framing the conversation, and then I want to just see what they're dealing with, right? What's the problem, and is it a big problem? Are they in the red or the green? If they don't know where they're at, then part of the thing that I can do is, and it's important to me, is what are the impacts? How is it impacting them personally? Is it impacting other people around them? What does success look like for them? Is it just losing weight? Is it fitting in the dress? What does success look like? What stopped them in the past? And how do they think their life would be different if they're able to reach that goal? Guys, that's a very natural conversation to have with somebody, right? Breaking it down into these 7 questions, if you will, is just a way to help you think through that a little bit as you practice, okay? So let me give you some examples, okay? So the first purpose, or the first question here, okay, is to frame the discussion, okay? And this one says, hey, from a health and fitness standpoint, what are you facing right now? That's my words. You change it whatever you want, but right? So I'm talking to somebody, and I say, hey, you know what? I've got this fitness boot camp that's starting up. I just, based on what you've said about this, I think it'll be a great fit for you, but I want to make sure. Do you have just a quick second for me to ask you a few questions to see if the fit's right, and maybe even send you some information if it is? They say yes, they say sure, say great. What I want to do is kind of frame the discussion, right? I'm not talking about, and I do that so I don't get off track. I can kind of direct the conversation in the place that I want it to go without hitting tangents. So I say, from a health and fitness standpoint, what's something you're facing right now? I'm framing the conversation and I'm getting us started around anything they're struggling with, right? The second question then is, we want to know why it's a problem, how big of a problem it is, right? And this can be, maybe it's not innate, maybe it's not a problem, maybe it's a goal. So in this one I would say, well, how's that a problem for you? Or maybe why is that a goal for you? What do you, from a health and fitness standpoint, what are you facing right now? And they tell me, you say, great, well, why is that a problem for you? Or why is that a goal for you? Okay? I want to get an idea of how big or how significant the problem is. The third question then is well, how's that impacting you? So they've told me the problem, and if they haven't explained to me how it's impacting them, I want to ask. So tell me how that's impacting you. Help me understand that so I can wrap my head around what you're going through. Honestly, in a lot of cases, after question 2, if you get some prospects will just tell you everything. They'll tell you the impacts, they'll tell you everything, okay, which is great. Sometimes you have to use these other questions to kind of to pull it out of them a little bit. The third question then, so we know the internal impact. The third question then is, well, is that impacting anyone else around you? And the reason why this one is really important for you, because again, sometimes people can get, they're not motivated necessarily to make change for themselves, but they can be motivated to make change for other people, for their children, for other people like that. And as a coach, it doesn't really matter how you get them to the starting line, as long as they get started, then you can bring everything out. Again, the whole point of this is just to help them get started, to make that first decision to start, right? Which is the hardest one for most of them. Okay? So what is it impacting anyone else? And then I want to know really what the outcome looks like. So what would success look like for you on this? Is it just losing that weight? Is it being able to run in that race? What does that look like for you? Then I want to identify any constraints. So I'd ask a question like this one, right? Maybe what stopped you in the past from doing this? oh, it's time, I've got these kids, I've tried before, but I just can't stick to the meal plans, or I've tried the workouts, but I couldn't get to the gym for the classes. Whatever the constraints happen to be, you need to know that. And then the last question is, this is where I always like to end this interview, giving them something to be excited about, paint a vision for what the future could look like for them, right? So I'd say, so if you're successful, what would you gain from this? Help me understand. Think about it. You went through, you lost the weight. What has that done for you? Help me understand what that is for you. And honestly, you guys, that's a real good question to end on, to kind of get them, make sure that they see themselves in that green zone, if you will. Now, these 7 questions I found to be very, very impactful, very, very important. These are my words, okay? So you can change up that wording however you want. I'm going to post it on the page, so you guys don't have to try to write all this stuff down, okay? I'll put all that stuff up there for you. But again, focus on the purpose. You'll get to the point, again, going back to this whole, driving a stick shift here, you'll get to the point where you'll just intuitively feel, do I know what their constraints are? Is it really a big problem for them? Have I figured that out yet? Okay. Do I understand clearly what success would look like for that person? You'll understand those pieces, and so all of a sudden this discussion will feel a lot more natural. But you got to practice it, and this gives you the structure to practice it. Okay, you guys. Now, one of the things I like to recommend you do after you go through and kind of identify the need is what I call the restate. Okay, and the restate. The reason is because during that process of asking them questions, they're going to start to get a little bit excited, but a little bit of anxiety is going to creep back in, because they know, you guys, that you're trying to have them buy something. And so they're going to start to feel a little bit anxious, as if they've engaged with you on some of those questions in that discussion. They're going to start to feel some anxiety creep up, because everyone tends to fear these decisions, especially, again, like I said, they're not typically good at making these decisions on their own. And so we got to be mindful of that, right? We have to be mindful of that. So the restate, what the restate does is it kind of resets us back to our intent being to help them as a person, okay? So the restate is just saying something like, hey, I really appreciate you sharing that information with me. I just want to make sure I understood it. So what I heard you say was this. And then you repeat back to them the things that they've told you, right? And then at the end of that, you just say, did I miss anything that was important to you? I appreciate you sharing that information with me. I really, really do. Just to make sure that I got it all, what I heard you say was that you really, really want to lose that baby weight, which for you looks like about 20 pounds. And it's important to you because you don't like how you feel right now. You don't like the way the lack of confidence, and you're worried that it's impacting your relationship with your husband. You're worried that you're not setting a good example for your children. The struggle you've got is you've got a young family, so time's at a premium for you, right? But if you could lose that weight, it would really, really help you feel more confident and feel like you're setting a better example for your family. Did I miss anything that was important to you? And so anything that they say, after you ask that question, really pay attention to, because it's going to be really, really important to them. But that kind of resets the whole thing of saying, I'm listening to you. I'm not just trying to manipulate you into buying something. I'm listening to you, and I want to be able to help you fulfill that need, okay? That then takes us on to phase 3, okay? Now, phase 3, you guys, is the sharing for me. Honestly, you guys, the bulk of inviting, the work of inviting happens right here and a little bit right here, okay? Phase 3 now is sharing information and getting feedback with them. So you go through, they've given you that information, you've restated to them, and you say something just simply like, hey, that sounds great, I really appreciate that. I think I've got a solution that would work for you, and it's helped a lot of people that have been in a similar situation. Let me send you some information and see what you think. Okay, something like that, where you let them know that you're going to send them some information, and you want to get their feedback. Okay, this is where you want to make sure, guys, that you use tools, video tools. The challenge pack guides, whatever. I mean, we just, for the All Access on Shakeology On Demand challenge pack, we just released 2 videos, one with Carl talking about it, one with the girl talking through what's in the challenge pack. You should know where those are, have those ready to be able to deploy to people, but use tools to be able to help give them the information, okay? Of course, you're going to talk about your group and what you'll do in the group, and it depends on the person what you're going to send. That's why, again, this is hard to teach sometimes, because each situation can be a little bit different. But keep it simple, okay? The error that I see coaches make at this stage is they feel like they've got to convince somebody, okay? They've got to convince them, and they do that by going very logical, and they do that by going very fact-based and point by point, like proving to them. You're not trying to prove, you're trying to solve. You're trying to solve problems for people, okay? So remember this little saying that I'm sure a lot of you have heard, but facts tell, but stories sell. Okay? There was an article in the Harvard Business Review that talked about that 95% of purchasing decisions are done subconsciously. They're done emotionally. And the reason for that is because there's really pros and cons to every situation. And so when faced with two situations, both with pros and cons, we tend to go with the one that we feel best about, and then we put logic in to kind of justify our decision, our emotional decision to go that way. So what does that mean for you? Well, when you're sharing information, they've got to have the facts. They need the logic side of it. But tell your story. Talk about the experiences. My last challenge group, I had someone in a similar situation, and this was the experience they had. I know you're going to have a similar experience. The reason why those portion containers are there, because I understand that it can be tough to know what that looks like, and boy, it really simplifies the process of learning the right portions for your meals, and it makes it a lot easier on you. These type of emotional things where you're sharing your story, the stories of other people, you're using testimonials before and afters. People make those decisions based on that. They want to be successful. They want to win. They want to get those results. They're predisposed to lean that way. So feed that. Feed that desire that they've got by not talking to them like, Shakeology's got 70, ingredients. That doesn't help me. What I want to know is that Shakeology will help me reduce my cravings. That it's clinically shown to help people lose weight like me. That's the kind of stuff that they want. It's not the benefit, it's not the features as much as it is the benefit. So think about that as you're sharing information, okay? When you're sharing information about your challenge group, people are going to need to know three things. They're going to need to see three things. First, that they can do it. Physically, from a time commitment standpoint, they're going to need to see that they can do it. They're going to need to want to do it, right? That the group's going to be fun, that it's appealing to them, whatever it happens to be, and that the value is there, that they're in the green zone. So think about those three things. Have they seen those three pieces? After you share the information with them, you want to just ask a real simple question, something like, so what do you think? This is the getting feedback part. So what do you think? And the reason why this is important is you may have identified a solution for them that they're going, man, I don't like dancing. So if you're sitting there talking about size, because you think it'd be great for them, they'd have a good time with it, that's one of the features of the challenge group, whatever, but they're like, man, I don't like dancing. You want to know that, okay? So if they come to you and you say, so what do you think? Well, I'm not sure. Okay, well, what about it did you like? Okay, well, I like this and this, but I just don't like the dancing. Okay, great. Now I know how to shift my solution. Okay, I know how to shift my recommendation to something else. And with Beachbody On Demand, that makes it super simple, really, really easy for you to be able to do that. So that's the getting feedback part. Last thing here, we're almost done, you guys. I know I told you we're going to get in the weeds. It was going to be tough. Still stick with me. Phase 4 now is assuming success. Okay, so assuming success. What I mean by this, okay, is our coaches, out of the goodness of their heart, of not wanting to feel salesy or not wanting to feel overly manipulative, sometimes we tend to, once we've kind of gone through, identified the need, we know they're about ready to go, when it comes to the time to ask them to get started, we freeze. We overcomplicate it. We insert a lot more of a, we raise the tension level too high. And we're doing it out of the goodness of our hearts. We say things like this, we go, hey, so it sounds like this challenge pack's a good fit. All that's left for you to do is to get your credit card out so we can get that pack paid for. So if you're not sure about this, let's make sure we talk about it again before you make this commitment, right? That's kind of an extreme example, but it's like, hey, so are you ready to go? Are you ready to do this? Can you see this? And it kind of raises that decision making where they kind of go, oh, stop, okay, oh yeah, I'm making a decision now. And honestly, you guys, at this point, I want us to assume success, okay? What I mean is, if we get to this point and they've reacted favorably to the information about the challenge pack and all that stuff, lower the tension on the decision for them to get started. Be simple, okay? So I've got a couple examples here, okay? But this one, like for example, this one I say, screw the paper, I'll just talk to you about it, okay? Assuming success is just acting like they already have made the decision. You're gonna love this challenge. I'm gonna send you a link real quick and I'll walk you through getting everything set up. That's assuming success. That's better than saying, okay, sounds like you really like it. Are you ready to get started? That one's okay. But for me, if they've given me all that favorable thing, assume success, okay? Make it easier on them to get started. Remember that the choice to get started is really tough for some people, okay? Like I've said about 100 times on this. So assume success. Hey, you know what? This is fantastic. I'm so excited to work with you. Here's a quick link. Click on it real quick and I'll walk you through the things you need to get so we can get started. Assume success. Dial down that pressure, okay? The last thing I want to mention real quick is the importance of follow-up. Follow-up happens throughout the entire inviting process with people. In fact, they say that over 80% of successful sales happen after the third contact. And so you're going to have to follow up with people, right? We follow up really for a couple reasons. We follow up to help someone make a decision to start, right? So that's something like, hey, I've got that group we spoke about starting soon. I've still got that spot for you, and I'm pumped to help you get those results we spoke about. Did you have any other questions? We also follow up to reestablish, re-engage, and reaffirm the relationship, right? Hey, I just saw something on Facebook today about blah, and it reminded me of you. I hope you're doing well and that we can catch up again soon. Okay? And sometimes we follow up because we made a commitment, right? Hey, just had a quick reminder pop up to touch base with you. Again, real quick, it's so hard to read this backwards. Were you able to talk things over with your spouse? Okay? The important thing about follow-up is tracking. Okay? One of the biggest pitfalls around inviting comes through a lack of tracking, a lack of discipline in tracking your contacts and the discussions you're having with them. Companies, guys, businesses spend millions of dollars every year for customer management systems, right? Where they track customers and they track things. You don't need to spend that kind of money, obviously. And you don't need nearly anything as sophisticated as like a Target uses, but you need something. Okay, the people I'm talking to, where I'm at, the reminders to follow up, etc., etc., etc. So follow-up happens throughout that whole process. So, all right, you guys, so I'm wrapping up here in like 2 minutes. We talked a lot about inviting, a lot of details around this. I'll provide some of the slides and information to you, but one of the things I hope that you took away from this is, yes, there are skills around inviting. I need to get good at asking good questions. Okay, I need to get good at really kind of getting a feel for how when people are in that green zone versus the red zone. So I'm really kind of engaging in the right time for them. But I also hope that on top of that you really understand that first principle where success, really intent is more important than technique. For a lot of you, that's the biggest problem right now, is you're not creating enough opportunities to invite, you're not starting enough conversations, and when you do start conversations, you're inserting too much of you into that discussion. It's not about you, it's about them. It's about my intent to help them. And people can tell. People can make a real difference, can tell a difference. How do we get better at this? Well, you get better at this by learning in situations like this, but you get better at it by doing, just like I did when I was learning how to drive a stick shift, right? And it will get to the point where it will be very easy for you to be able to do this. It will be intuitive for you to do this, but you've got to pay the price to learn the skills, and you learn those skills by doing it, okay? So be patient with yourself. Be disciplined. Start those conversations every single day that lead into those opportunities to get into the inviting process with people, you guys. And I know you can do it, you guys. We have something that the world needs. I'm so excited for us to be expanding internationally. I can't even wait to see the impact that we have globally as we go into some of these markets, but even domestically here in the U.S. The obesity epidemic is increasing, unfortunately. Okay, we are the best player in the industry to change people's lives. We have the track record of making a difference, and every time you talk to somebody, it's not just them, it's their family, it's their children, it's everything that having that type of a lifestyle impacts. And it starts with the decision by a coach to open their mouth. You know, last week we kind of had this really cool experience with this I Am Team Beachbody hashtag. And as I was reading through that Sunday night when it kind of started with Christina Delgado and it started going, and I was reading the stories, and I was like, man, you know, these are so amazing. I just wish we could capture these. So I printed some of them out, and I brought them here to the office, and I taped them on the windows. And that turned into 3 or 4 days of us printing up and putting up hundreds of these stories throughout our office and the ceilings and all over the place. And it was so cool to me to see the diversity from this, to see the different ethnicities, the age groups, the different walks of life that people came through, and how awesome our company is that way. But then I realized that they all had one thing in common. All of them. All of them had a coach. Everybody needs a coach. Every one of them had a coach who made the decision and the effort to reach out to them and to say, I can help you. And I'm sure a lot of those people were like resistant at first, but the coach was persistent with it. And they built that relationship, they established that trust. And because of that coach, those lives were changed. What we do matters. What we do matters. Our mission matters. But our mission starts for coaches with inviting, okay? With getting out and really talking to people, making a difference. And honestly, you guys, if you want to know how to build a strong residual income, that's how it comes. That's how it is. It's as simple as that. So thank you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to jump on here with you. I hope this was helpful. I know it was a lot of information kind of thrown at you like a fire hose, but hopefully for some of you it was impactful and useful. I really appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to talking to you guys soon. If you have any questions or anything, just put them in the comments, and I'll go throughout the day. Tag me, and I'll go through and answer them the best I can. So appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye now.